Ready? Yep. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum, and Lance, will you please lead us in the pledge? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That will bring us to recognitions.
We're thrilled to have a packed house tonight for all of our student and staff recognitions. Ms. Porter?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and kick off recognitions by inviting Marcy McElwain and the FBLA state qualifiers up to the podium.
Hello, everyone. Our chapter continues to break records each year. They set new records at districts. As a chapter, we received 33 medals, qualified in state for 18 events, and earned 10 first-place medals. That was for districts. And moving on to state, we set 5 new state records. We won Gold Chapter of the Year for the 3rd year in a row, and 2 members earned first place at state, and 8 placed in the top 15, and 6 qualified for nationals. So the rankings were Landry, who is not here, was 5th in Introduction to Marketing Concepts. Blake is not here, 2nd at Nationals in Digital Video Productions. Camden, I don't think he made it. Oh, come on up. Yeah. And let's see, where was I? Camden didn't make it. I'll move on. Kaylin placed 3rd at districts in real estate, and Drake and Kaylin placed 1st in visual design at districts, and then Vivian placed 1st at districts in public speaking and 4th in business communications. Trent placed in business communications as well. Isabella Hanover placed 1st at districts, 8 at state in journalism, and Jonah placed 1st at districts and 13th at state in future business leader. And he placed 1st at districts and 6th at state in no, did I say those backwards? I did. I said them backwards. It was 13th in future business educator and ended up 6th at state in future business leader. And then he also was inducted as the District 4 Vice President of Communications. And Charlie, Luis isn't here, but he placed at districts 1st and 2nd at state, and Charlie placed 3rd at districts and 1st at state. She was one of our first place in the Introduction to Retail and Merchandising. And then Brooklyn placed 3rd at districts and then was our 2nd first place at state and Introduction to Marketing Concepts.
Can we just hold one of those so he's not the only one holding it?
No, he's got one. I just gotta find his. Sorry, Trent. I didn't know where yours is. We're getting there. Here we go.
I have that piece of paper.
That one, did I pick yours up?
Yeah. Oh, it
Yep, I
was
see it.
yours. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, now we will invite Dr. Drew Smith and the 2026 Missouri 100 Scholars and Honorable Mention students up.
All right, tonight I have the honor of recognizing Zach Blees and Dylan Rosinski for their honorable mention and Missouri Scholar 100 top student distinction. You may be wondering what a Missouri Scholar 100 is. We've had one for the last 4 years. And what it is a program through the Missouri State Association for Administrators that recognizes the top 100 students in the state of Missouri. To be considered for this distinction, the students must go through something called an academic decathlon. They were not aware of this, but they have been going through one for the last 4 years. And each of these 2 students have been excelling in all aspects of the decathlon. So you may be asking what's a part of the decathlon? What are all the parts? They must maintain an almost perfect GPA, a top-tier ACT, excelling in an extensive list of honors and AP classes, and be a top 10% student in their class. It doesn't stop there. Their selection also considers their leadership, character, school involvement, and service to the community. And in every one of those areas, each of these students has gone above and beyond, demonstrating not just academic ability, but a strong sense of purpose and integrity. So I'm going to start off with Zach. I'd like to recognize Zach here for being an honorable mention distinction for Missouri Scholars 100. And he doesn't know I'm going to recognize him for this, a finalist for the National Merit Scholarship. All right? So this is not the first time Zach has been recognized by the board due to his academic or athletic prowess. Zach has met all standards for the academic decathlon, which made him eligible to be a Missouri Scholars 100 student. Zach has pushed himself to the highest standard of academics at GVHS with the honor of being an AP honor with distinction student because he has an average AP score of a 4.8 after taking 5 AP exams. That's, yeah. Yeah. And I would say that's probably going to, go up again in the next couple of weeks, right? Yeah. What did you say? 6 more to take. You hear that? Yeah. Not only has Zach set a standard of academic excellence, but I like to say, like I said already, he's a National Merit Scholar finalist. That's a prestigious award only given to 15,000 seniors in the state of, or in the nation. Sorry, in the nation. And lastly, I would like to make sure it's noted that Zach has recently signed to wrestle at the prestigious University of Chicago. Please join me in congratulating Zach for all his accomplishments at Grand Valley High School. Next, I would like to recognize Dylan Rosinski for representing Grand Valley as our Missouri Top 100 Scholar. If you're not aware of the astounding person and student Dylan is, you're in for a ride here. Dylan cleared the academic decathlon for Missouri Scholars by exceeding expectations on all benchmarks. And if you didn't know, he's also been an absolute star in the performing arts department for our show choir and theater. Additionally, excelled in our speech and debate program at the highest level. So I'd like to share some accolades for Dylan. Dylan has earned a 35 on his ACT. Dylan has been given the distinction of AP Scholar with honor for scoring a perfect 5 on all 4 of the AP exams that he's currently taken. I imagine he will have distinction after this year as well. Dylan has been a state qualifier 4 times for his performances in speech and debate, earned 2nd in state last year, and has also qualified for nationals multiple times. Dylan has been a lead in multiple plays and musicals. If you've ever been to a play or musical over the past 4 years, you already know who Dylan is, as his performances always stand out as phenomenal. Lastly, he has also shined in our choir program, earning state distinctions or all-state nominations multiple times. And again, if you've ever seen a show choir performance, you would recognize Dylan as a standout performer. Please join me in congratulating Dylan Rosinski for his honor of being a top 100 student in the state of Missouri. There's one thing. Lastly, I'd like to say that both Dylan and Zach are shining examples of the Valley Way, demonstrating excellence, integrity, and commitment in everything that they do. We couldn't be prouder of these 2 students, and we will truly miss their presence in our halls. Thank you, Zach and Dylan.
Next, we'll invite up our Winter Guard, who was the MCCGA Open Class Champions, and Miss Araya Pinfield.
I could go one by one through every student, but in this activity, we are all different puzzle pieces that make one whole image in our activity. There's no one that outshines the other person. So to start off, I want to say thank you to all of our district support, our Green Valley community, our high school admin, our transportation team. In early March, as we were headed down to Tulsa, Oklahoma for a national competition, there were tornadoes north, south, east, west of us. We had to pull over on the side of the road for an hour. It was a mess, but they killed it and we made it. But most importantly, to our parents, our staff, and our students who truly bring this program and activity to life in Green Valley. It really takes a village, and Green Valley has that in our activity. So after last year, after our stellar fifth place finish at World Championships last spring, our varsity Winter Guard program was promoted to the next highest class, the Open Class. This is one of the highest levels that any high school nation worldwide can compete at. This season, the team shifted from performing fundamental skills, foundational skills, to more abstract artistry within our productions. Going up to this new higher class, our goal wasn't to win the class, but to be competitive overall. And we by far exceeded that goal and our expectations. Their breakthrough came when we were down in Tulsa at our WGI competition. Despite rewriting our final 2 minutes of our show, literally 7 days before this competition, changing the music, changing where they go, I walk out to go to the bathroom, a girl is in the air, and I was like, oh, we're changing things. Here we go. They ended up taking first in prelims by over a point, and then by the end of the competition, we defeated by 4.6 points. And in our world, 4 points is like 4 touchdowns. So there's not much. It's hard to come back from. And since we were in Oklahoma at this national competition, there's only 6 teams within the Midwest that compete at our level. There's 2 teams in the state of Missouri, us and Blue Springs. So it was very big for us to overtake a powerhouse like Blue Springs that's double our size and everything. But the momentum continued as we headed into MCCGA championships. This is essentially our state championships. We go against teams from Arkansas, Illinois, Oklahoma, Iowa, Missouri, and the state of Kansas. We went into championships ranked first. We followed through with that and became the state champions in our Scholastic Open class, outscoring the powerhouses of Blue Springs and Bentonville High School. This marks the program's first open class title following the remarkable 3-peat championship first class win streak in the prior division of Scholastic A. So, yeah. Yep. Okay.
Do you have Skills USA?
Next, I'll invite Skills USA, Jamie Bergseeker from the Fort Osage Career and Technology Center, and students who qualified for state up.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Berkseeker, and I am the Career Resource Educator and Skills USA Advisor at the Career and Technology Center at Fort Osage. It is an honor to be here tonight to recognize an outstanding group of Green Valley students who represented your district at the Skills USA Missouri State Leadership and Skills Conference. For those of you who may not be familiar with Skills USA, it is a career and technical student organization and the nation's leading workforce development organization for students. Its mission is simple but powerful: to prepare students to become skilled professionals, career-ready leaders, and responsible community members. What makes Skills USA unique is that it directly connects classroom learning to real-world application. Students are evaluated not only on technical ability, but also professionalism, communication, teamwork, and critical thinking. Students can take what they're learning in the classroom, from public speaking and interviewing to performing CPR and providing emergency first aid, and compete against their peers, all the way from the school level to the national level. These are the exact skills our workforce is demanding right now, and your students are stepping up to meet that need. Let's just say Green Valley showed up for us when it came time for state. This year, we had an incredible group of students qualify. Not with us tonight, Avery Stumpenhouse in First Aid and CPR, Peyton Bell in EMT, Kayla Milbrot in Prepared Speech, and you also did Mobile Electronics, Austin Harris in Power Equipment. Not with us tonight, Ethan Page and Gavin Peoples in Heavy Equipment Operations. Not with us, Jacob Simmons in Culinary Demonstration, Elijah Schroeder in EMT, Destiny Patrick in Criminal Justice Quiz Bowl, and not with us, Jace Rawlings in Welding Fabrication. These students represented Green Valley with professionalism, determination, and pride. But they didn't just compete, they succeeded. I'm proud to recognize the following state medalists. Emily, I skipped your name. I'm so sorry. Emily Holtzworth in Leadership Essay. For our state medalist, we have Peyton Bell, who received gold, Emily, who received silver, Avery, who received silver, Austin, who received bronze, and Gavin, who received bronze. But beyond the medals and the placements, there are moments that truly define a program and set a new standard for what is possible. Peyton Bell and her teammate made history by earning the first gold medal for the Career and Technology Center in the EMT competition, a major milestone for the program. When asked about their success, Peyton shared, "We're just going to follow our training and do our best." That mindset, trusting the process and rising to the moment, is exactly what Skills USA is about. Because of their achievements, students from this group have now qualified to compete at the Skills USA National Leadership and Skills Conference this June in Atlanta, Georgia, where they will represent not only your district, but the state of Missouri on the national stage. That is something to be incredibly proud of. Success like this does not happen by chance. It takes hardworking students, supportive families, dedicated instructors, and a school district that values opportunities in career and technical education. So tonight, I sincerely thank the Green Valley School Board for your continued support and sharing your students with us. Your investment in these programs is making a real difference. And to you guys, congratulations. We're incredibly proud of you, not just for the medals you earned, but for the skills you are developing and the futures you are building. Thank you.
Next up, we invite Mandy Brown and her principal Jessica Carroll to the podium. We are pleased to recognize our Support Staff Employee of the Year, Mandy Brown. Ms. Brown is a paraprofessional from Grain Valley Early Childhood Center. It is apparent that Ms. Brown is well respected by her colleagues and has a passion for supporting students to reach milestones in their education. One of her nominators states, Mandy continues to excel, bringing compassion and strong instructional skills with our intensive teaching program to her daily work. Mandy is planning to return to school to complete her teaching degree and aims to become a classroom teacher in an early childhood special education classroom one day. And we have Dr. Jessica Carroll, principal at the Early Childhood Center, here to share more on Miss Mandy Brown.
Thank you. Mandy joined our staff at Early Childhood in the spring of 2024, and right away I knew that Mandy had a natural talent for working with children with special needs. From the moment that Mandy joined our team, I knew that she found ways to proactively seek out knowledge and experiences just to help the students that she worked with. She worked collaboratively with our classroom teacher and the speech language pathologist in our building, and she learned quickly how to master the intensive programming that the students in her classroom needed. Her eagerness to learn, her warm demeanor, and her gentle, enthusiastic personality quickly set her apart at Early Childhood. In the 2 years Mandy has been there, she has served as a long-term substitute for a classroom teacher, a role that she took on and excelled at, and has assisted other teachers and paras around the district, sharing her talents and ideas with them. One of my favorite memories of Mandy that I distinctly remember to this day was maybe 2 weeks after Mandy started working. It was time for parent pickup. I was walking out of my office and I turned and I did a double take. At the time, we had this little girl who was very particular about, I told Mandy she was gonna know who I was talking about. We had a little girl who was very particular about who she wanted to be around, and she did not bond with very many people. And I turned and this little girl was sitting in Mandy's lap, had her arms wrapped around her neck, and I stopped and I thought to myself, wow, she is special. She has continued to prove what a special talent that she has for working with our little learners with significant needs every single day, and Grain Valley is lucky to have her. I can't wait to watch her become a classroom teacher, particularly for me someday. Congratulations, Mandy.
Congratulations, Ms. Brown. If Ms. Stacy Stifler and her principal, Dr. Casey Deloach, would make their way to the front. And while we're doing this transition, I want to point out to Mandy and to Stacy, if you hadn't noticed already, there's plaques in our hallway out here that have been updated with your pictures and your information. So, all right, Ms. Stifler, come on up. Our Teacher of the Year, Stacy Stifler, is a 5th grade teacher at Snybar Elementary. It is clear through the nominations that Stacy creates a welcoming environment for her students, colleagues, and families. One of the ways that Stacy has created a culture of belonging for students at schools by launching a new club, SNI Ambassadors, which provides mentors to students who are new to the school. Stacy leads the school's social committee and is the sponsor for the yearbook. Nominators wrote, "The kids love Miss Stifler. The parents respect her. Colleagues who have had the pleasure of working with Stacy Stifler always speak in admiration of her passion and dedication to both her kids and families and to the profession." It was also said, she just has this natural ability to bring people together, which helps make Snybar a positive, collaborative, and fun place to work. So congratulations, and Dr. Casey Deloach, principal at Snybar Elementary, has more to share on Mrs. Stifler.
Yes, I do. Thank you. So one of the cool things about Mrs. Stifler is that she is an idea person. I can count on her to bring ideas to me. I see her all the time coming. I can almost tell when she's walking down the hall with a new idea. And what I love the most is she's not only an idea generator, but by the time she tells you about the idea, she's got almost all of the details already thought out for you. She's ready to solve all the problems that might come up, and she gets those things done, and she is always looking out for students. It was telling to me when we did the presentation and she found out that she was going to be our Teacher of the Year. You know, you would expect a lot of really happy people and happy faces and smiles, and that was true. And there were a lot of happy adults and smiling adults. But the thing that stood out to me the very most was the most excitement was coming from her students. They truly were over the moon with excitement for her. And even more than that, the look on their faces was one of happiness, which is expected, but also one of pride. I feel like her ability to create a family feel in her room is something that her kids can feel and know. So who better to talk about Mrs. Stifler than some of her kids? So I have secretly been talking to some of them and asked them, what is it that you love about Mrs. Stifler? And so here's some of the things that were said. I like that she's helpful. She helps explain things, not just reread the question. She's not too strict. I mean, she has rules, but they're rules that are helpful. The next one says, I love how she's so patient with her students. Like, if someone doesn't get the problem, she's very patient and goes over it with us. We do STEM bins a lot, and it's really fun. I like that she does that. The next student says, she's kind. She asks us questions and explains stuff, which allows me to learn better. And the last one says, I love that she's always trying her best to make people happy. She's always kind to everybody. When we went on our zoo field trip, she was walking around smiling at everyone, and it just made me really happy. So sometimes we don't always hear the impact that we're having on students' lives, and Mrs. Stifler, I want you to know that you're making an impact on so many students, and we are so appreciative for you. Congratulations.
Okay, that is the end of recognitions. If you are here specifically to see recognitions and would like to leave, now would be a good time to do that. I think most of them exited already. Next on the list is patron comments. We didn't have anyone sign up. If you missed the sign-up sheet and would like to speak to the board, please raise your hand and we'll have you come fill it out. Otherwise, we'll move on. Seeing none, we will move to reports. We will begin with the superintendent's report and the financial summary board. Were there any questions on either of these reports? I do have one question for Dr. Gooch regarding is a better word probably, the lunch debt. Looks like it's crept up just a little bit. But we're still sitting at over $100,000. I don't recall off the top of my head if we had a target that we were trying to reduce that to.
There was a target the target was really more towards the growth between last year and this school year.
Okay.
So I won't have that until the end of the school year for you if we've actually accomplished that target or not. But I will say that the last few months it has slowed down, so I'm hopeful that we will make the target that we've set.
One of the things that really drove that down last year was like prom.
Yeah, and we did that stuff again. We've also recently we have started working with the credit recovery system or company as well, and so that process has just begun. And so I would expect that would probably help reduce this as well again. So that's still kind of in its infancy, but it's underway, and hopefully here in the next few weeks we'll see we'll see that improve as well.
Once we get growth under control, we may want to change our focus so that the target is on reduction
Yeah.
as opposed to growth. So something to think
Yeah,
about.
I have, I actually had a meeting about this just yesterday, so it's one of the things that's still, I think it'd be a great opportunity for us to maybe talk during a future workshop as well about some additional information and things that I've gathered from more discussions on it as well with not only our food service department, but just other representatives from other school districts.
Board members, any other questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Dr. Reich, on the prepare training, it said that strengthen kind of just the whole approach to different things. Is that something that we would then see in updated plans or like our crisis response or during kind of that evaluation piece?
Dr. Allen?
I'll have Carrie come up to talk about the prepared.
You can just
training.
come up to
Yeah,
the podium.
That'd be great. Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry.
They're not used to that.
Oh,
So yes, the prepare training will be part of our emergency and is already part of our emergency operations plan. And so it's just more details about what that would look like following a crisis.
gotcha. And then with the agilities in incorporating that with students, would that be, because I know like it, part of our career pathways is another piece. Is that something that we could weave into that as well?
Correct, yes. That's the intention, that we will weave it into our ICAP process and also our career education planning.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sorry, student services, got it.
It's okay.
I did have a question, Dr. Allen, about the transition that was happening within our SPED department. Is that something that we partner with Voc Rehab on post-high school training as well? Is that something that was there at that fair?
We do. Dr. Schonk was at our workshop, so she's not here tonight, so I can get you more information. But having attended that evening before, I do know we partner with them.
Okay, yeah.
But for more specifics, I would have to reach out to Dr. Schonk.
I assumed it was something that we partnered with, but they weren't mentioned specifically, and so I was just curious if we were utilizing that.
Gotcha.
And then in general, like it looks like through HR, our list of open positions seems to be growing right now, and we're getting towards a point in the school year that seems like things are shifting and settling. Like, is that something we're worried about or making progress on? Like, it's just a lot of teaching positions still.
Yeah, I think we filled positions that were previously open, and we've got some new openings, so I've not been alerted that there's a particular position that we're struggling with.
Yes, we've had a couple come in April, which is feeling, towards the end of the school year, you get a little more nervous, but we've had applicants and we seem to be filling them appropriately. We do continue to keep general posts open. So what you might see is a generic post. So it may look like we have a much longer list to hire than we actually do. But we do, obviously you see from our hire and resignation list, continue to have a few come in each month. But so far, we haven't had a situation where we don't have applicants or we're worried about being able to fulfill that role.
Gotcha. And then my last question is in regarding to the tech part of the report. So in that technology, it had mentioned that middle school devices are going to start staying at school to ensure that we have high quality devices and get more life out of them. I know that a lot of our really high achieving middle school students use their Chromebooks at home quite a bit in order to meet the demands of the classroom. So is there, and I know too through our goals as we move forward, we're trying, I think in some cases to move more away from technology, but in some of those in-depth pieces and parts, is that something that the teachers will then adjust for? Because then especially like in a retake situation, if they're trying to demonstrate something and are having to perform something and practice something a lot, to be able to have the access to still do that for those kiddos that need the support at home, yeah.
It's a great question. I do think, for teachers, it probably feels a little bit like a pendulum swing back to prior to having one-on-one devices, going back to certain practices and certain teaching instructional strategies. And so they're going to have to be cognizant of how and what we assign and the ways in which students can be retaught and demonstrate that they're ready for, say, a retake. I will say there's a lot of conversations. We had these conversations starting at the beginning of the school year, throughout this entire school year, with the middle school principals to do a lot of problem solving and questions through both their leadership committees along with every single team. So I know they've worked through a lot of those questions and concerns and what that's going to look like. The other thing that we're doing sort of on the actual Chromebook side is just making sure that we have enough extras in the library, say for checkout, or for students who are absent for a period of time and they feel like, you know, that's necessary to check out a Chromebook for a period of time. That will obviously be available. But I have no doubt there'll be a bit of growing pains as you make a shift like this, but I do think that overall the philosophy we're very committed to, and when I say we, I mean the teachers and the administration, to making this shift and making it work. So I feel like they're going to continually be seeking information from students and from families about how it's going and what we can do to be more responsive and help. And I think it's just keeping that communication open and being responsive that'll be really important as we make that shift. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Do we have any data at the middle school level around usage at home? Like
We
a lot
do.
of kids take them home and they don't get out of the backpack. What's that
Yeah.
look like?
I don't have the numbers with me, but we talk about at our academic services meeting, we are able to pull that data of who's utilizing a device outside of school hours, and we can also see what they're utilizing it for. And by and large, I would say that the students who are using it, which isn't a large portion, it's not for academic purposes. So that's why we felt confident in making this shift, that we weren't going to be doing, you know, more harm than good. But it's something that we'll, you know, continue to reflect on, like I said, in our day-to-day, hours to hour, you know, 8 to 3 school day, and what shifts that we need to make. You know, for example, you wouldn't, as a teacher, say, if you want to excel and grow and challenge yourself in this area, try this online program at home. You know, that would not be a reasonable suggestion moving forward. So I think it's a lot of shift in instructional practices as a whole, but those were some of the data that we took into account when we were deciding what to do moving forward. And we actually considered this year before last and decided it wasn't the right time because we needed to put some things in place and start switching some instructional strategies. So we're actually a year beyond when we first started talking about this, to give that comfort level to teachers and to provide sort of that background around the impact of screen time and what that does developmentally. To kind of get our teachers there so that they are the champions of this. So I think it's something that we'll continue to reflect on and adjust as need be. But I will say, as a group of educators, we feel like this is the right move at this time. But we're always ready for feedback and to be reflective.
Any other questions on the superintendent's report or financial summary?
I have one. Dr. Smith, do you know where I could view the percussion ensemble performance at the national event? And can you say what the national event was?
Yeah, it was.
Dr. Smith, do you mind coming to the mic for me? I'm so sorry. Thank you.
I may not have the best answer to this, but I know it was a couple weeks ago in Indianapolis, and I believe they have it. I don't know if they have it on camera or not, actually, because there's, you know, they have to. You got copyright and things like that. I've seen little snippets of it, and they had a show here before, a preview, and it was outstanding. The amount of percussion instruments they use, I didn't even know that existed, but we have a very highly, you know, standard program. I mean, one of the top ones in the state.
That's why I wanted to
Yep.
see it, so.
Yep.
Nothing crazy, just figured I'd ask, so thank you.
Mr. Pollard, I'll share the snippet that I was shared by Mr. Meserly with you. I don't feel right publishing it because I don't know copyright reason, but I'll share that with you.
Any other questions? Okay, state legislative highlights. Dr. Welly, would you give us just a real brief?
Yeah, the one update I would give, since you saw the written report, is that yesterday the Senate passed many of their appropriations bills, including school funding. They passed House Bill 2002, and it appeared, my first glance at it, it appeared to have the amendments that came out of the Senate Appropriations Committee. I don't know that any other amendments were passed on that, so it will go to conference committee now, and and we'll see what comes out on the other side of that. So we're tracking that, but we are expecting state revenues that are down next year compared to this year, and we'll talk more about that in our budget talk later in the agenda.
Board, any questions or comments? Okay, just a quick overview of the Finance Committee, please.
Yeah, the Finance Committee previewed the budget some of the budget conversation that you're going to see tonight, and the budget amendments. So you, it was just they got a preview, and we had a very good discussion.
Board, any questions on the minutes or comments? Okay. That brings us to unfinished business and annual priorities progress update.
Yeah, we had 3 main priorities this year, and the priorities start on page 3 of your packet. Priority 1 was student feedback practices. Number 2 was professional development for teachers to support behavior K through 8. And number 3 was on facilities. And we already met our year end. We made our last report on the facilities and the February update. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Allen with any highlights for priorities 1 or 2.
So just very high level, overall priority 1 was really instruction and learning. I mean, overall, I do feel like we went above and beyond on this measure, but it's also the one that's probably going to carry over the most into our next 5-year strategic plan. We are currently sitting at 58.2% of our curriculum complete. So between this summer, next year, and next summer, our goal would be to complete the remaining courses. I will say that towards the end of our curriculum audit, towards the end of those courses are going to be some advisory courses and some things that are sort of ever changing. So I'm very confident that Dr. Gump and her team next year will make progress through definitely, I would say 95% of the curriculum that'll be set and reach our ultimate goal. And in ways that we've gone above and beyond, we've done additional work with teachers on releasing writers this year on some writing professional development, Project Lead the Way training for teachers at the elementary level to certify our elementary teachers, to be Project Lead the Way trained. And then we've done a lot of professional development around professional learning communities, none of which was really part of this, but I think it'll set us up nicely for next year and our continued work. So overall, I'm really happy with where we are, but we will continue to work with students with significant reading deficiencies, that curriculum work piece, and of course, professional development surrounding grading and feedback and assessment as we continue to develop the curriculum. And then priority 2 overall, I'm just going to characterize it as behavior. I put sort of a little asterisk for you in the April update that I thought was really important. I would say whether it's qualitative or quantitative data that we've taken in, so through surveys or behavior data that we've taken or the roundings we've gone to, we're getting a very positive response on behaviors, especially minor behaviors having dramatic drops from a few years ago, as well as the level of support that teachers are feeling in the classroom. So we feel like we've just made great gains overall when it comes to behavior and are really happy with the progress. We have more work to do, and we see that continuing, but we're seeing dramatic increases in positive behaviors and decreases in distracting classroom environment behaviors year over year over year. So we're very excited by that progress, just as a whole. But I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Board, any questions? Okay. The 2026 through 2031 CSIP strategic plan.
Yeah, we bring the new CSIP plan with revisions based on input from the March board meeting from the board, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Allen to kind of explain all the red ink you're seeing. Sorry.
So everything's in red. No, bless you. So I basically tried to completely reimagine the plan based on your feedback. I felt like I heard from multiple board members that you sort of wanted to keep it simple approach in the sense that whatever's forward facing to the community and to students, that it had no what I call edu-speak, it took out any jargon in it, just made it very clear and simple. I don't think it's memorizable, as maybe was a request. I don't think anybody's gonna memorize them, but I do think that they're easy to understand, repeat. I picture this, on a website. It's things that we could report out to the community as we're making progress. What I thought would be helpful in this plan is if this is sort of the forward-facing piece that we report out on publicly, and then behind the scenes, as we do with the board and with our staff, our annual priorities would contain heavier amounts of those more specific detail-oriented and education jargon in it that we would explain and walk through, but much like we do typically with our annual priorities. So this was a total revamp, I would say. I was looking for any feedback from you all tonight on whether you like this approach or not, and then I'll share this out with our strategic planning steering committee as well, with sort of the philosophy behind it. But like I said, this was just a rework based on your feedback that I could see working well. These little pieces then could be put, one of the things we do with MSIP is submit a 5-year plan. So what are we gonna attack from each one of these 7 goals for the next 5 years? And so we can kind of break that apart over a 5-year plan and then dig into annual priorities more specifically that you all will review with us quarterly, like we typically do.
So I appreciate you listening to our feedback, and I think it hits the mark for me. I'm curious what other board members would think. Obviously, there's a lot that goes underneath this, so we'll want to give input, I'm sure, on that as well. But specific to this document, and I know it's just information discussion, we're not acting on it tonight. Anybody have any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with you that it's most definitely kind of brought it down to where I feel everybody in the community can read it and understand it, kind of the gist of it, which was the goal. So I appreciate the work that went into it. As of right now, I don't see anything that I'd change, but yeah, I think it most definitely made a good revision on that. Thank you.
So this will eventually be approved by the board. What does that time frame look like? Is that a June?
We would bring it back as soon as next month
Okay.
for your vote. It really just gauges on the kind of feedback we get tonight.
Okay. If anybody has any additional thoughts,
I like it.
let's make sure we get in front of that before next month.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, I believe next up is the draft budget.
Okay, so as a cabinet and with Mr. Aaron Hooper, we have been working on preliminary presentation of next year's budget. So the slide deck that you have tonight should look familiar in format because it's the format we use when we roll out our full budget proposal in June. That being said, you don't have the full proposal. We just kind of want to hit this at a high level tonight. The current school year, the bottom line is the current school year is going to end as with your budget amendment tonight. You're going to authorize a deficit budget for the year, and we'll talk more about that, why that is later. But our budget proposal for next year starts what could be a lean period for a while. We don't know if these 2 years will be the only lean deficit years. I suppose best case scenario is that they are the only 2 in a row. There could be a third, there could be a fourth. So it's something that we need to take very seriously. But on the other hand, the way that we have been managing the finances in the years where we had year-over-year revenue gains, these are the days that we cash that in, so to speak. So yes, we need to be vigilant, And the more years we have that are lean, the more vigilant we need to be, and the more intentional we need to be about restrictions and how we grow. As a general reminder, 80% of the budget is salaries and benefits. So we can put restrictions on things, on growing the budget that is not salaries and benefits, but the bottom line is if we're starting to get in trouble, it all comes down to salaries and benefits, and it comes down to the number of personnel that we have and how big the raises are year over year. So in this budget, and I'll go right into the narrative. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I do want to read the narrative because I think these are the key points. So our goal is to create a budget that addresses the priorities of our CSIP strategic plan and adequately provides for the needs of the district in the onset of a period of revenue uncertainty. This budget proposal reflects what we know now. The state legislature is considering a budget that for next year that fails to fully fund the school's the funding formula. And we are budgeting a state adequacy target of $6,700 per student at this time. And we may adjust that by the June proposal that we bring back, but at this point, that looks like the most responsible approach. This is down from what we budgeted a year ago at $7,145, so it's a pretty significant drop. Transportation reimbursement is also not expected to be fully funded for 2027, and so that drop is all. These are the assumptions that are built into the proposal that we're showing you tonight at a high level. This budget includes local funding based on the 2025 property assessments, along with AV estimates for 2026 that we've already received from Jackson County. So when you set the non-binding preliminary tax rate, this takes into account that AV and that preliminary non-binding tax rate. It also accounts for caps to the 2025 commercial assessments placed by the interim county executive and anticipated tax credits for the 2023 and 2024 tax years. We are recommending advancing all employees one step on their pay schedules with no additional money added to the base of those schedules for next year. And our 26-27 budget will be a fiscally responsible effort. Information in this presentation is preliminary and does not reflect the final budget. And then on to the priorities. Priorities number 2 through 5 are the same priorities that we've been holding in recent years, but we added priority number 1, carefully prioritize expenditures during this period of revenue uncertainty. I'm going to keep moving through, but at any point, just jump in and interrupt me if you have a question. We are following our standard budget preparation timeline, so you've seen this before, you've lived this timeline before. April's a little early for a preliminary budget presentation, but we like to be able to share at least our projected revenues. And in a year like this, where we're going to be projecting a deficit budget, we just think it's particularly important to share what we know when we know it. Our K-12 enrollment remains relatively flat. And these are our October 1st numbers for grades K through 12 that we report in the fall to the board each year. And that takes us to the graph about our medical funding, including our short and long-term disability and our life insurance for full-time employees. And as you can see by the overall height of the bar graphs, orange and blue combined, we're projecting budgeting to remain relatively flat for the 4th straight year. But one slight adjustment is instead of $900,000 in supplemental extra payments, we're recommending taking 200 of that down to 700,000 and put the 200,000 towards our ongoing contributions per employee. So, but the overall budget for our health medical benefits is relatively unchanged for next year. Major budget items, this is where we really start to get in the heart of what we want to talk about tonight. I'm going to highlight 2 of these. The first line, the decrease in real property tax, is showing a net that we're down $343,000. But this is the line that takes into account the potential tax credits that have been promised for 2023 and 2024 for Jackson County property holders. But you could see, you might be scratching your head, well, if it's, we've heard this is going to be $1.3 million potentially in the first year's tax credits, and that is true. The 790, so the operating side of the $1.3 million is $795,000 in operating. So that's part of it. The key reason, though, why it is only a net loss of $343,000 is because we include the calculation of your non-binding preliminary tax rate of $4.90 against the estimated assessed valuation for 2026 that the county gave us when you set that rate. So those numbers are all baked into this. So instead of this reading $1.3 million deficit, we're showing a net loss of $343,000. And then I want to jump down to the decrease in the SAT, or the state adequacy target. We are budgeting $6,700 SAT down from $7,145, which was what we built this year's budget on. And so we are anticipating a net loss in state funding of $2.1 million. And so that number sits pretty true to what you've seen and heard already. Now, some of these adjustments are going to be addressed in the budget amendment for the current year that are still later on our agenda. So when you see this page again in June, these numbers are going to look a little different because you will have already voted on a budget amendment for the current year, and we'll explain that again when we get to June. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hooper. Aaron, if there are any other highlights on this page, or otherwise, I really would like to pause here and for any questions or comments from the board on the revenue side.
The only other thing that I just, to kind of mention, the Prop C and the increase in the classroom trust, those increases, the Prop C is basically an increase just going through the formula with it changing the percentage of the weights from the membership from 10 to 20%. So that's just the increase in that. And then the increase for the classroom trust is just an increase in the per ADA amount. So that's what you're seeing, those increases. And the other one that kind of you might look at and wonder why there's a decrease in the SPED, high need SPED of $370,000. That's an estimated amount based off of discussions with Corey Schonk and the SPED department. Just the fact that we're not going to have as many kids that have qualified for those needs, and so therefore the revenues are going to be down next year. So we're just anticipating a drop in the revenues for that.
And are those revenues, are those reimbursement revenues?
Yes, they're
Okay.
always basically a year lag.
All right. And then, Mr. Hooper, it stays with you if you would walk us through any highlights on the expenditure items.
So really, you see there the increase for the estimated increase of $610,000 for the additional step on the salary schedule, and then the increase of the $360 annually for the board contribution for the insurance. That was $218, but then you see that's where we decreased the $200,000 from the $900,000 that we had last year to get it down to the $700,000 this year. The only other two that we have listed on there, the special ed and non-salary expenses, that really stems from less tuition that's going to need to be paid for outside services of around $260,000, and then less purchase services estimate of about $68,000. So that's where that $319,000 decrease is coming from. And then obviously the last one's pretty self-explanatory. We budgeted $720,000 this year for bus purchases, and we will not be making, as of now, we will not be making any bus purchases for next year.
Are those additional buses or just replacement of existing ones?
Replacement of existing
Replacement.
this year.
Any other questions? Did you want to go through the challenges, or do we feel we're?
I think the challenges are all the same. Sadly, none of them are going away. I think we've added a couple challenges, so that's why you see the font getting smaller. But I think we've tried to keep you up to date on them. And I don't think One thing I'll say on the additions where it shows the FTEs, you know, one approach we've taken this year is we have quite a list of proposed new positions next year that we just said no to. Like we knew this was coming, and so we really have to have tight scrutiny any time that we're going to add a new position. And you can see that we also, for the new positions that we have here, we also have 2 teaching positions that opened up, one at Snyabar and one at Stony Point, that we are not backfilling those positions. So we're capturing those into the budget as well. But no, the rest of it is pretty straightforward. Again, we wanted to give that preview. Board members, as you absorb that, if you become curious, nervous, you know, about proceeding and about what June might look like, just let any of us know what you're curious about, and we will work to address it at the June workshop when we give our formal preliminary budget presentation.
You said let any of us know. I'd like them to funnel that through you. So
sounds good.
Anything that you have a question about, please funnel it through Dr. Welly. There is a request to have salaries broken out a little differently. We'd like to see admins, so I think it's probably director and above, and then administrative assistants, and then certified, non-certified staff, so we can get a better understanding of what those expenses look like separately, please.
Sounds good.
That's a lot. I have another comment before I do. Any questions or comments from the board?
Well, a couple of things that we talked about in the finance committee meeting, I think it's just important to look at, those percentages of revenue or reserves and things like that, where we'll be at. I don't know if you want to talk to that, Dr. Welly or Mr. Hooper, as far as kind of where this puts us. We're still in good shape with our reserves, but we don't want to continue down this path, but we're still in an okay position.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think, Mr. Hooper, if you would walk us through the 2 scenarios for the current budget year on a transfer to Fund 4 and the 2 scenarios for next year that we're looking at this point.
Okay. So this year, if we were to do the anticipated Fund 4 transfer, which again is just moving from operating over to capital projects to cover capital project expenses, if we did the full amount that we're able to do, we would be doing around $1.7 million. That would get would drop our fund balance down to the 19.71, which is obviously lower than what we would hope and what we're trying to achieve there. So because that is that low, we have the flexibility to not move as much of that funds. And so the scenario 2 is basically taking $700,000, which would pretty much cover everything that was Fund 4 related expenses minus the buses. So the buses would basically be paid out of the reserve balance for Fund 40, but that gets us up to a fund balance percentage of around 21.38%. So which is, that's more acceptable in what we're looking for. However, you see whenever we start with that, looks pretty good here until we get to next year. And when revenues start dropping and expenditures start going the other way, you see how quickly that fund balance adjusts and starts to drop. So again, if we were to do the entire Fund 4 balance next year, which would be, I believe would be, as you can see, a little more than what our budget expenditures are, would be 15% fund balance, which is terribly low. So going back and doing the same type of adjustment to the transfer like this year we're probably going to be doing would basically be saying we'll cover 600,000 of that, which would not quite cover all of our Fund 4 expenditures for next year. And that there's no buses in that. That just would be a little short of covering those expenditures next year. And that only gets us to an 18.18%. So that's still a lot lower than what we would like to be. So that's just kind of looking at that, and just to give an idea of the realities of if this continues, that percentage will continue to drop.
But it is an important lever, and we have for years, most years, we do a full Fund 4 transfer, and we maintain our levels at our reserves at the desirable level. Coming into lean years, that's an important lever. And so it's likely to be our recommendation to do a smaller transfer this year so that you maximize your reserve going into another tough budget year. And then a year from now, I assume we would minimize the transfer again. We would still, you keep an eye on Fund 4, but we should be fine covering our expenses in Fund 4. And that is an anticipation that if there is a third year. And of course, a year from now, we'll know if there's a third year or if it looks like there's going to be a fourth year. We will also know, we'll have a better sense of where we stand on any recoupment eligibility. And that's a lever that we haven't used in our school district, or at least not in our recent history. And that is in the calculation for the levy set in the fall. There are certain lawful recoupments that you can do for certain losses that you experience as a school district. And it may be that the actions that were taken by the county for 2025 assessed valuation of commercial property after we set our levy, we may be eligible for recoupment for that as soon as this upcoming fall. And it may be that in another year, after we have incurred losses as a result of tax credits for 2023 and 2024, the first installment, once we've experienced those losses, then the following year's tax levy may be eligible for some adjustment in order to recoup that. So if both of those scenarios are recoupment eligible, it's going to soften significantly the loss in revenue that we're looking at on the near horizon. So, any other questions or comments?
We know when we would have an update from the county on possible recoupment?
So, two things. The county knows that we need to know what our actual losses are going to be. Then we submit that to the state, and it's the state that authorizes whether or not it's a recoupment eligible expense. And Dr. Gooch processes that when he does projections for the levy late in the summer. So we'll know later. We'll know when you set your levy in September. That'll be part of that presentation, is whether or not we're eligible for recoupment, and then he'll break it down for you of this is without a recoupment, this is what the levy would be, but with recoupment eligible, this is what we're proposing for the levy. And you could see that 4 years in a row if both, we already incurred the losses for 2025, but if the tax credits move forward as planned, that's over a 3-year period. So that's 3 years worth of levies that some of that is possible to be recoupment eligible. And that fourth year, the last year you're doing that recoupment, you're not experiencing a loss that year, so you're actually going to be recouping from the year before, and it has the potential to be the first positive gain you have after a 3-year stint.
I think moving through these scenarios as you go through the recoupment and the different processes with levies and different things, I don't know that there's going to be any time that it's ever been more important about messaging and having a clear and concise and combined message with other taxing entities such as the city, so that we're kind of all speaking the truth and the same thing, so that all the community understands that this isn't just money grabs and the reasoning why, and it all just needs to be very clear as to why this is happening, and the coordination between the different entities, I don't think will be any more important than now.
I completely agree with that statement, and we'll build on that just a little bit. To the community, it's going to look like a complete contradiction, because we're going to spend $40 million that they just authorized us to spend on a stadium that many will think is not the best use of money when you're in a budget crunch, and to expand on a building, and they're not going to understand that that's a different bucket of money and how that works, and And so I think that communication to the community is going to be absolutely critical. And I still think that we have to watch every penny. We just really have to watch every penny. Any other comments or questions? This comes back for discussion.
June workshop.
And, okay, and so one more discussion at the June workshop and then,
And then, yes, then we'll ask it, we'll bring it back as an action item at the board business meeting 3 weeks later, because we have to have our preliminary budget approved by July 1.
okay. Next on the list is the insurance rates for 26-27. I'd entertain a motion to approve the insurance rates for 2026, 2027 as presented.
So moved?
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Dr. Welly, do you have a?
Yeah, we bring this back from last time. We ask for approval of our rates for the upcoming school year, and we're ready to get open enrollment for employee benefits started.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, approve non-certified staff for 2026, 2027.
Related within the fourth degree.
Related within the fourth degree. This list has been provided, and I'd entertain a motion to. Is that right?
Yeah, it's on 2 pages.
Okay, so I'm just gonna read it. Motion to approve Joseph Phillips as a field technician for the 2026-2027 school year.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call.
Yeah, I was going to request a roll call vote.
Yep. Thank you. Jeff?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Lance?
Yes.
Julie? Yes. I abstain. Thank you. MSBA Summer Summit, June 14th through the 16th, 2026 in Osage Beach. Discussion?
Mark your calendars.
All right, any questions? I'm sure we'll all be there. New business.
I'll be there if you're going to be there.
Me be there?
Summer Summit, I'll be there if you're going to go.
It is on.
Okay, we'll talk about that offline. New business, budget amendment. Motion to approve the budget amendment as presented. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Okay. So this amendment reflects the reduction in state funding that's anticipated by a reduction in the state adequacy target compared to what we had originally budgeted for the year. This will lead to a revenue shortfall of $1.4 million, resulting in a budget deficit of $1.5 million this year.
Questions or comments? Moving fast, I kind of feel like an auctioneer up here, so I need to take a deep breath. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Add a middle school assistant swim and dive coach stipend for spring 2026. This is an action item, so I entertain a motion to add a middle school assistant swimming and diving coach stipend for spring 2026 issued to Shelley Pollock in the amount of $1,720.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I want to bang the gavel one more time. Thanks.